folks, today I have the treat of all treats. I have Marguerita Cheng, Rita Cheng, as she goes by. And listen, she's the CEO of Blue Ocean Global Wealth. She has a multitude of URLs for her own brand, for Marguerita Cheng TV, Marguerita Cheng Radio, and she has every designation you could ever possibly want. She's an in-demand writer, speaker. She has contributed to 14 publications. You know all of them. I'm not going to read all of them, but Forbes, Wall Street, CNBC, Reuters, everything. But more importantly, in 2021, she was named number 7 most influential advisor by Investopedia, a woman to watch by Investment News, and a top 100 minority business enterprise, and just tons of other stuff and things. So, hey, I won't delay anymore. Rita, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell me, going back and reading your bio, it is so doggone interesting. So tell me give us a little bit of backstory, your history. I mean, you went from an advisor at Ameriprise and an analyst at Toyo Securities in Tokyo to doing all the stuff and all the things now. How did you go from there to all of the accomplishments you have right now?
Sure. I love stories, and I can definitely share this story. So in college, I studied East Asian language and literature and finance.
Now, where did you grow up?
So I was born in New York,
okay.
Lived in the Netherlands, and attended high school in Texas and Maryland. And then I attended the University of Maryland. You know, I graduated from high school when I was 17, and my dad didn't feel like I should stay in America alone by myself. So he received a transfer to move to Japan. And so I've lived in Japan as well. So in college, I studied East Asian language and literature and finance. And the East Asian language and literature component is really important because that's actually what helped me get the job at Toyo Securities. I won a full scholarship to study in Tokyo, and then you get to work in your field. And at that time, I never thought I was the best networker. I don't even think I knew what networking meant.
Sure. You're a college kid. How would you?
Yeah, how would I know that? But I always tell people you have to be prepared for the opportunity and you have to present yourself well. So I went to an event, and there happened to be this guy there who was in a leadership role at a securities firm. And he asked me, what I was doing in Japan. I said, I'm studying and I'm working. And then he asked me if I knew how to, I was speaking to him in Japanese. My spoken Japanese has never been that good.
Sure.
He asked me if I knew how to write and read. I said, absolutely. And he had a newspaper and he asked me to read it. And I read it to him. I read like a paragraph. He was like, wow, you're really good. Why don't you work for me? I said, no, I can't because I'm in school full time. He's like, you can still
work. You're not at
Ameriprise
at this point.
No, I'm not in Ameriprise. This is before Ameriprise.
Sure.
And I said, sir, I'm on a student scholarship. I need to study. That's my first priority. But if you're able to allow me to work part-time, I'll work part-time for you. He's like, done. So I got a job just by being at the right place at the right time. I worked at the securities firm. And the reason I'm sharing this story is my job at the securities firm. I'm a native speaker of English. I know accounting and finance, and I know how to read and write Japanese. So my job was to write a newsletter for English-speaking investors. And that's what I did. But eventually it was time for me to come back to America and finish my studies. I liked that experience at the brokerage firm, but I felt that it was too transactional. So the takeaway is sometimes it's just as important to know what you don't like as much as it is to say what you like. I realized I loved my finance degree. I loved that opportunity, but it was so transactional. I never had the opportunity to interface with clients. Now, at that time, I was in my 20s. I didn't really know the distinct discipline of personal financial planning. But I realized that I could take the concepts we learn in corporate finance, strong balance sheets, statement of cash flows, and apply those to individuals and families.
And that's what you were studying at that point.
Yeah, that's what I was studying.
Wasn't personal finance. You were studying the big, advanced, financial classes 405 that are things that the average person probably would never touch.
I took classes in futures and options, and a lot of it was corporate finance.
Right.
But I decided that, you know what? I really wanted to change conversations about wealth. And I thought the best way to do that is to focus on financial planning. So what I did is I never let my dream slip away from me. I decided that I needed to build my skill set. So I had a full-time job in America. At that time, I was also helping my husband prepare for the CPA exam. And I felt like I needed to demonstrate some maturity. Not that I was immature, but we got our financial house in order, paid down student loans, credit card debt, had 2 kids, bought a house, had 2 kids, all that.
Sure.
So then when I was like 32 years old, I said, you know what? I feel like I have street credibility. Not only did I have this experience writing this newsletter, but I also have degrees. So there is some knowledge. I'm going to be a financial planner. And so
Wait a minute.
that's what I did.
You got all of these accomplishments I just read, and you didn't get started until you were 32?
Correct.
Oh, good night. Keep
So
going.
that's what I also want people to know. I want people to know that it is not a race, it's a marathon. And you can also change course. You can change course. It's okay to get off the course. You are not going to get disqualified.
There's so many advisors that, and I say advisors, people in general, but advisors that really need to hear that message, that are doing it the way they've been doing it, the way compliance has been doing it. And there's a lot of changes coming up, and they need to hear that message from you.
Absolutely. So you definitely need to stay compliant, but don't let someone define success for you. Create the business that you want. And so when I said I started in the business when I was 32, that's not old, but it is older. And I had a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. And people said to me, they're like, how are you going to be successful with these kids? And I said, what do you mean? This is so great. I don't need to stop and get pregnant. They're already here. Somehow I have to make the business work for my family. It's not the other way around. And so I put my writing on hold, and I worked really hard to build relationships with people and learn how to have conversations. And this is really important because I know that we're under pressure to sell. And the reason why is because the best thing that we can do to help our clients is be successful and stay in business. But it's important that we also have a long-term mindset. You have to have a short-term marketing plan, but you also have to have a long-term business plan and make sure that they're in alignment. So my thought process about this is, what can I do if people are not ready to do financial planning, but they like me? What can I do to allow them to stay engaged in a way that's meaningful for them? And so that's when I decided that, you know what, I am going to take the time to start writing again and develop, now we say content, right, to help people.
Well, at this time, have you started a Blue Ocean, or are you under somebody else when you go to writing to promote? I say promote, but to engage.
So sure. So from 99 to 2013, I was at Ameriprise Financial, but I didn't really start writing again until 2004. I didn't write for like 5 years. I didn't write because I was busy. I was busy taking care of my kids. I was busy running a business. I was busy preparing for the CFP certification exam. But then I realized that personal finance is personal. Our profession does not represent and reflect society at large. And there were people who really valued what I had to say. This is pretty profound because I'm somewhat of an introvert. I was like, if you told me, hey, write something, I'd be like, nah, I don't want to do that. Not because I'm lazy. Like, who's going to read that?
Right.
But I realized, being a mom, being an entrepreneur, being a CFP, there were a lot of people that like to hear about personal finance from my perspective.
So when you started, so at this point, you're still at Ameriprise, and this is when you start writing before you take off on your own. How do you, especially if you're thinking, well, you're introverted, you don't know that people want to hear from you, what are those steps you take to get yourself off the sideline and into the game of writing? And then how do you decide what you're writing?
Sure. So the first thing is I had a mentor, and my mentor told me three things. The first thing my mentor told me, he's like, Rita, you need to join the professional associations. Now, you can't just pay your dues, but you need to become involved. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like busy. I have two kids. He's like, you don't have to go all in right away, but don't just pay your dues. Come to the meetings and shape your profession. That's the first thing he said. The second thing he said is like, I know you like to read. You need to read the stuff your client is reading, even if you don't agree with it. That way, you know what they're reading and you know how to communicate. So I listened to him. The third thing he told me, he's like, Rita, you told me you used to write this newsletter back in the day. Once you are reading and you understand what people are reading, you need to reach out to like reporters and journalists in a way where you don't shame them, but you're like, hey, I like what you said about X. Have you thought about Y? And so that's what I started to do. The other thing I did is I did media training and all of these things. So I am the type of person, I am very coachable. If you tell me to do something, I'm going to listen to you, but then I also make it my own. I decided that, I wasn't just going to put myself out there and start like reaching out to reporters and writers. I was going to start to follow their work. And so I would follow their work. I did media training. And then I said to myself, oh my goodness, if I could just have one column, that would be amazing. And then I'm allowed to say it. Kiplinger Personal Finance reached out to me. And they said to me, they're like, would you like to be a contributor? And I want people to know sometimes there's two ways you can do this. You can receive compensation for your writing, right? I know that some people say you should get paid for your work, and I do agree you should. But this opportunity to write for Kiplinger, I didn't get paid, but I owned the rights to my work. And I was like, okay, I'm in. And that was an amazing opportunity. I got to focus on my beat. I'm putting beat in quotes. And that was to write about what it means to be sandwiched. I have aging parents and kids at home. And so that's kind of how it started. I started to listen to my mentor. I did what my mentor said, but then I took it to the next level. I did media training.
So at what point here that you're doing this writing, do you switch from Ameriprise to your own firm?
So sure. So the other thing I wanted to tell people is you got to make sure that you are compliant. So every time I wrote something or contributed, I turned it into compliance, and I worked with my compliance team. There was a point in time where I understand we need to be compliant. Remember how I told you I'm like very obedient. You have to be careful what you tell me to do.
Dot your I's, cross your T's.
Right. Somebody told me like, Rita, you need to do what you can to stand out in this sea of advisors. And I did that. But it started to become, how can I say it? I want to make sure that I am staying compliant. I also want to make sure that I am building my brand. And what I realized is where I was working was a great firm. There was nothing bad. I spent 14 years there, but I wanted to do things a little bit differently. At this time in my life, my dad was very sick. My dad had Parkinson's disease. And I wanted to be able to grow my business, but not just worry about assets under management and the number of clients. So at that point, as my dad's condition was declining, I decided that it was never going to be easy to make a move, but I made the move at the end of 2013, and my dad died in the beginning of 2015. So I had been thinking about making a move, But I guess what prompted me to like be serious about that move is, my family situation. Also, I know there's a lot of financial advisors listening. Around 2012, I started to really seriously think about this. And then I made the move in 2013. And the reason why I felt that time was perfect is because the financial markets were pretty stable. People had recovered and seen their portfolios recover from the global financial crisis. So I said to myself, change is never easy. It's not. There's no time like a present, because if I don't do this now, there might be another downturn and I'm gonna have to wait for another recovery. So it would appear to people on the outside that I was haste because I'm kind of quiet and introspective and a little bit of an introvert.
Sure.
But actually I was planning behind the scenes. I'm very strategic.
So you're at that point where you decide to make that move. How do you, and I guess you've already answered, you just had to change your mindset and you were strategically planning. So tell us about when you first made that move, what it was like, what you did to grow the firm, and kind of up to the point today where you've got all of these accolades. What are you continuing to do that helps you stand out? And I'm assuming part of it, or not part of it, a lot of it's writing, but bring us up to speed there.
So sure, of course, I think that it was a very important decision. And I think what I told myself, I said, Rita, you did this at 32 when you didn't really know anything and you had 2 kids. You've been in the profession for 14 years. You're a certified financial planner. You have some other designations. You have leadership positions. You have experience acquiring clients, servicing clients. You can do this. Yes, you're starting over, but you're building back better. Seriously, you are building back better.
There you go.
Right. You,
Rita 2024.
Rita 2024. It was unsettling, but I think it was definitely mindset. I was like, think about this. You were 32 years old. You were fearless and you didn't know anything. Now you're a little bit older. You are wiser. So you can do this. It's not going to be easy. And that's what, like, I told myself. So the process was that I put the foundation in place, and I knew that I had to follow protocol. There's certain things I couldn't do, like I couldn't solicit clients. And then if clients wanted to come, they could come. A lot of clients did come. Some clients didn't come. Some clients who did come were so happy and proud of me that they actually referred me to other people. I think that for people who are scared of making the move, I think it's very important to say, and just put it out there, it is stressful. It's very stressful. You cannot think about what you're leaving behind. You have to think about what lies ahead. And that's what always kept me going. And when my dad was super sick, I think he was worried. He's like, how are you going to work? And I sat on his floor and I had my laptop. I'm like, Daddy, I'm working right now. And if I get a little bit emotional, it's just because I think that, somehow I knew that timing was right. I knew that my dad had Parkinson's disease for a while, but at this point, he's requiring a lot of care. And I told myself, he's not going to be here forever. There's no time. There's never going to be a good time, but now is truly the best time to do this. And I did it.
So now that you're at, you got your own firm, what specific steps do you do, not just after you started, but now that you've grown it, what are you doing consistently and regularly? Writing is one, and you're in all the publications. Are you hosting events? Are you doing do you have email marketing campaigns? Do you have social media campaigns? I know you've got, you make a ton of appearances. So what are those specific things you're doing now to continue to stand out?
So one of the things that I did want to say in 2013, I launched the firm at the end of 2013. In 2014 and 2015, it was really about the foundation. It was about onboarding people that I knew who wanted to continue to do business with me, who wanted me to continue to be their advisor. So 2014, 2015, I didn't necessarily market so heavily. I did onboard clients that I served that wanted to continue. And I also started to build relationships with, reporters, writers, media outlets, writing my continuing education programs. That was time very well spent, because then as we transitioned into 2016, after my dad had passed away, I felt that I was in a position, because the foundation was there, to market. So one of the things that I really try to do is make sure that I write something once a week.
Okay.
When I say something, it could be a long article. It could be 2 sentences. I try to write something once a week. Some weeks I might write 5 things, but I try to average something once a week. It's the habit that really matters. I have no idea if what I write, someone is going to publish it. But that's not why I wrote it. I wrote it to organize my thoughts so that I can better answer a client's question. That's always been like my why. I go back to that newsletter that I wrote when I was in college. It was to communicate with investors. So I go back to my why. Why do I do this? I want to be able to share information, increase access and awareness of competent, ethical financial advice, because it's to my core. I believe everybody deserves to become financially resilient. And we become financially resilient by being able to make more informed decisions and better decisions. And we do that when we have, when we're not rushed, we have time to think about things, and we have access to advice. So that's like, if people ask me, what is it that you do? I try to write once a week, at least once a week.
And that's, go ahead.
Consistency.
Right. Consistency. That's the key. That's what I was going to jump in here with, and I interrupted you. But the concept is it's not just advisors. Anybody that I consider a busy professional, that could be in insurance, in business coaching, consulting, estate planning, gosh, all across the board. One of the bigger issues that I see so many people talk about is that they're just trying to stand out, or they're chasing whatever shiny object came by them last. And the folks that are like Rita, over and over and over, they say 2 main things, and she said them both today. They're consistent. And for those of you that are a Seinfeld fan, I'm sure everybody's heard this story before. I'm going to retell it. Is that he was working one day writing. He just got tired of it. He didn't want to write anymore. And then he was looking out. I'm looking out the window, like anybody can tell. Sorry. He's looking out the window at construction workers, and he's seeing them on a break, and then they go back to work, and he's like, they're out there. It's hot. It's dirty work. It's sweaty. They don't want to go, but they have to go. If they can do it, I can do it. So he started writing every day. Now, granted, he's a comedian, and he's supposed to write every day, and he has a calendar, and he would write a big red X on there. And his goal was to keep putting that red X on there and never break that chain. And he's just said, like what you did, but don't know if every bit of it's great. And in many cases, his wasn't. But you could take the nuggets, and if you're consistent over a period of time, you're going to have something. And the other thing you said was about authenticity. And we've talked about that being an overused term, but if you're writing from the perspective of, like you talked about, being a mother or an entrepreneur or a daughter or somebody that's got a diverse background and a multitude of things, people can engage with it, and they can understand that you're writing that's something that they want to read at their level. So anybody that's doing this, it doesn't have to be writing. That's Rita's thing. She pointed that out because she's introverted and that she enjoyed doing it, but it could be doing this. It could be interacting with other people. It could be just creating something on a semi-consistent basis, daily or weekly, knowing that a lot of it's going to hit the editing room floor, so to speak. But once you get into that habit, you have a ton of content and a ton of things that other people can engage with that they will appreciate. And the best part of all is that it makes you better at everything you do.
Absolutely. And if you're like, I don't know what to write about, you don't have to violate confidentiality. I'll give you an example. In one day, 3 clients asked me the difference between a home equity line of credit and a loan. So I wrote an article about it. And now when people say, what's the difference? I can say, you know what? That is an excellent question. Another client asked me this. I didn't put their name in there, so we're not violating confidentiality here. You may find value in this article I wrote. it's not really about a lot of people like, what's the return investment? It's really the return on impact. Like, did this article, did this piece of content help somebody? And if it did, then it's worthwhile. Did it help somebody make a better decision? And so that's what I tell myself. And if writing isn't your thing, you don't have to do writing. You can do a podcast. If podcast isn't your thing and you want to do video, then do video. So find what works, best for you and be consistent. I send a newsletter. And what's interesting is sometimes I don't think anybody reads the newsletter, right? And maybe they don't. But what's interesting is when that newsletter is in someone's inbox, clients will hit reply, "Hey, Rita, I know I owe you that form. Oh, yeah, we need to meet." So you might think that people are not paying attention, but you need to understand that different people, you can't be all things to all people. With that in mind, you need to make sure that you are creating an experience that allows people to engage with you in the way that makes the most sense for them, whether that's email. I haven't done this yet. You can sign up for services where you can text your clients. Now, I haven't done that because I don't know that I want to get text messages. I do hear that clients are more likely to respond to a text message. So this is something that I'm exploring. So I'm just saying you can find whatever works best for you and your clients.
That's excellent. Excellent place to, you've been generous with your time. Excellent place to start wrapping up. I always like to finish with something fun. Rita, what's your most recent or best under $100 purchase you've made recently or ever?
Oh, I would say the most recent purchase for less than $100 that has been incredibly valuable was something I bought at the running store. I am training for the Berlin Marathon.
Ooh.
So this purchase is actually more than $100, but I had a coupon. Okay. So I am still below the $100 mark. They are my Mizuno shoes.
Ooh. Those are like walking on little clouds, aren't they?
Yeah. So even though I think they're 130, I had a coupon. So I'm able to answer the question that they were $95.
You did so fantastic. I'll reiterate that. I had to start moving over to I'm not a runner. I had to start moving over to the runner shoes because my knees are completely shot from playing basketball as a kid. And I'm on cartilage, but I'll agree with you 100%. Even if you have to pay the $150, they're totally worth it. Rita, tell folks how they can find you or get in touch with you.
So first, if you have any questions, you can find me on LinkedIn, Marguerita Cheng. Website is blueoceanglobalwealth.com. I'm also on Twitter, blueoceangw. So if you have any questions, here to help you so that you can feel more comfortable about your marketing and outreach.
Rita, this has been absolutely awesome. Thank you so much, and you have a great day.